So next up is Dr. Alon Liel, who has been a long-time close friend of the JDI and a regular speaker at our events. Thank you very much, Alon, for agreeing to be with us tonight. Many of you may be old enough to recall that Alon was Israeli ambassador to South Africa during transition period of the early 90s, where, excuse me, he played a critical role in rescuing the relationship between Israel, the local community, and Nelson Mandela's ANC, which had been more than somewhat damaged by the previous right-wing Israeli government. And in the past few months, Alon has been one of the major instigators of the Israeli campaign to advance recognition of a Palestinian state alongside Israel by the European parliaments and governments. And I am guessing that it's largely due to them that they scored a recent success when the initiative was embraced by France's President Macron. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand back to Anton to take over. Thank you. Yeah.
Good morning and welcome. I'm going to hand over to you to make your introductory remarks, and then I will just manage questions from the floor, alternating between Joburg and Cape Town. So please go ahead.
Hi, I hope you hear me well.
We hear you very well.
I don't see all of you, but I see you, Anton, and I see Nelson Mandela Foundation on the podium, and that's a good inspiration for me. I will open my remarks with a very personal angle and maybe leave the analysis to the second half, mainly to the questions. And if you would ask me to give a title to my speech, it would be, I'm ashamed to be an Israeli. And it's painful to say because I was born here in Israel and went to the Israeli education system and served in the army. And as you know, over 30 years as an Israeli diplomat. And I'm ashamed to be an Israeli today. And I will explain. It's especially difficult for me because I was not only a diplomat that was moving around from one country to the other. I was for 3 years the spokesman of the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I was the mainstream of the mainstream. And waking up in the morning, I wonder what happened that I find myself in the margin and so far away from the contemporary mainstream. But I will try to give you my feeling, personal feeling. And again, let's leave the analysis for later. First of all, I am ashamed that the Israelis, most of them, especially key leaders, see us Israelis as superior to anyone around us. Definitely to our immediate neighbors and enemies, the Palestinians, but it's much beyond it. We see ourselves as superior because of our achievements, military achievements, economic achievements, technological achievements, the stability of the country. And you can often hear, look at them around us, fourth world, and we are first world. So we have all the justification to see ourselves superior. I personally do not see myself superior, and I don't think we are superior. And the worry is that from this superiority, the rest is emerging, the policy is emerging from this superiority. The nationalistic, messianic policy is first of all emerging on the assumption that we have the right to do so because we are superior. We are the chosen people. Nobody else has the right to live in the area, definitely not as equal. And it became much more worrying and dangerous during the last 2 years. But as you know, it started before with the nation state law and so on. So this is point number one, that you as South Africans should understand better than anyone else because of the white superiority for 45 years in South Africa and the results of the white superiority. The second thing that worries me so much is that we as Israelis, especially now, especially during the war, but not only during the war, see only ourselves, our pains, our worries. We do not see anyone else. And this came during this war to an unbelievable situation that you wake up in the morning in Israel, and I'm sure some of you were here during the last 2 years. You open the TV and you see only the suffering of the Israelis. And we suffered. We had casualties. It's getting close to 2,000 casualties now in the last 2 years. And we had people that were kidnapped and evacuated and so on. But from morning to the moment you go to sleep, you see only our suffering. You see nothing of the suffering of the other side. And you know, as people who live outside Israel, that there is a lot of suffering on the other side. We don't see it at all. I mean, we don't have Al Jazeera here. We don't have CNN here. Al Jazeera was boycotted. And if they show us photos of kids that are starving, we say this is fake. This is propaganda, Palestinian, Arab, anti-Israeli propaganda. We deny everything. So as somebody who was quite often abroad during these 2 years, recently in Paris, visiting and meeting Macron, and I'll be able to elaborate on it later, I know what's going on. Now, the Israeli government, the Israeli media is hiding from the Israelis what is really going on, and the focus on our suffering has the intention of increasing the feelings of revenge. The third thing that I'm ashamed about is that we, the term of the life of the individual, the fact that life itself is sacred and is important has been removed. The life of the individual, definitely the enemy, but also our lives, the lives of our soldiers, the lives of our kidnapped people has become cheaper than the value of the land. the land is more sacred than the life. The value of the life of the individual has deteriorated to the point that if somebody is dying for the Jewish people, for the Israeli nation, and we see now people dying on a daily basis, soldiers dying, and they try to convince us that they do it for the safety of Israel, and I cannot be convinced. And I think many of the families of the soldiers, and maybe even the soldiers themselves, do not understand why we are fighting in Gaza these days. So this element of no value to human life, not of others and not of ours, or deterioration in the status of the value of human life is also what I'm ashamed of. I'll give you the fourth number, the fourth reason why I'm ashamed. And this is, of course, a result of the fact that human lives means nothing. And this is the fact that we, during this war, crossed all possible legal red lines by using force excessively in a way that is not acceptable by international law. And this is the reason that the world is accusing us for war crimes, for genocide accusations, starvation accusations, and even recently concentration camps by this shifting forced removals of the Palestinians to maybe 20% of the Gaza land. So I, as a diplomat, as a human being, I am ashamed that there is no respect for international law, and that we are in the middle of a war of revenge, that in which we reached a situation that it cannot be defined as a war anymore. It's not a war. I mean, anyone can pick up his definitions, but you cannot define it as a war. We already fight the Hamas for 2 years, and we already said numerous of times that we killed all their leadership and we killed an enormous number of people, and they have no ability to inflict any damage, and we still keep fighting under the title, the total victory. And this war has nothing to do with the survival of the state of Israel, and even not with the security of the state of Israel. At this stage, I'm not speaking on the beginning, but at this stage. The fifth reason I am ashamed is the attitude that the Israeli public has developed to the international community as a whole. We totally ignore the international criticism. We label it as anti-Semitic. We have the feeling here, not only the right wing, that no matter what we do, the world will hate us, will never give us a chance, will always be anti-Semitic. And as somebody who spent 15 years of his life outside, I know very well that this is far from being correct, but we, with what we do today, we push ourselves to a corner that we slowly, gradually will justify these anti-Semitic feelings. And I'm very worried about it and ashamed. And it has a lot to do with our superiority, because when you are superior to the rest of the world means nothing to you. And I'll go to the last point that is also causing me a lot of shame. With the picture I described, I can tell you that there is no Jewish ideological opposition to what Israel is doing today. I would say that the only serious opposition to what Israel is doing today and the way we handle ourselves is from the Arab Israelis. You hardly have, definitely not in politics, you don't have a Jewish party today that is opposing the government on the issue of the occupation, on the issue of starvation, of the issue of the transfer, on the issue of excessive use of force. They oppose, we have opposition to the behavior of Netanyahu, to his personal conduct of things, but there is no Jewish or political, I would say, Jewish opposition to what this government is doing, meaning with all what I described until this moment, the government can go on do whatever it wants, and it's going on, and it's definitely further complicating our situation, and we'll have to carry on our shoulders as Israelis for generations what we are doing these days. I want to go, I don't know how much time you give me for the opening remarks, but I want to go to the Jewish angle, to the Jewish. How much time do I have, Anton, for the opening remarks?
Can you take another 10 or 15 minutes?
Yeah. Okay. That's enough for me.
Okay.
I hesitated if to tell you that I'm ashamed also as a Jew, not only as an Israeli. Because when I'm saying that I'm ashamed on a Jew, I put some of it on your shoulders. And I know who you are, especially who JDI is. And I know that you oppose what Israel is doing. But I will also tell you that I'm ashamed as a Jew. I'm ashamed to be Jewish today, not only to be Israeli. The main reason is that a lot of the justification of what Israel is doing is based on religion, is based on the messianic approach, that Israel has to be bigger territory-wise, the support, the enormous support to the settlements, which is, as you know, a breach of international law, and the fact that you cannot hear rabbis, definitely not mainstream rabbis in Israel, definitely not the religious parties, standing against what the country is doing, and not only to our enemies, also to our own citizens. The nation-state law is based on Jewish superiority and is not directed to the Palestinians. It's directed to the Arab Israelis or to the Palestinians who live as citizens inside Israel. So the creation of this superiority feeling that is leading to this messianic, nationalistic, conservative alliance is based to a great extent on Judaism, or on the leaders of today's Judaism. The second reason that I'm ashamed as a Jew is, and here I'll go more and tell you about the international situation, that in no country in the world where you have a Jewish community, the Jewish establishment, the Jewish mainstream is opposing what Israel is doing today. And this leads me to believe that there is something wrong in the Israeli character and also in the Jewish character of today. I mean, if we have the majority of Jews in the world backing this illegal war and this approach, Israeli approach to its neighbors, to its region, and to the international community, there is something wrong with Judaism as a whole, the Judaism of today, and with the link between Judaism and Israel. I must say here that we start seeing big cracks in the American Judaism. And we start seeing a beginning of a revolt, Jewish revolt in the United States. And I would say that today a quarter of American Jews, especially young Jews, understand that we are committing suicide as a nation, as people, and what worries me is that it's only the United States at this stage and a little bit Britain, and in the rest of the communities, it doesn't amount to 10% of the community. I don't know the percentage in South Africa, but the fact that you are 250 people this morning gives me some hope. But generally speaking, I see it now, especially in Europe, when Europe is hesitating if to recognize Palestine, the main pressure comes first of all from the establishment of the Jewish communities. And we see what's going on with the Jewish community in France and Macron. And of course, Israel is encouraging it. And this is one of the tools that Israel is using against the international community or international leadership, using the fact that we have French citizens and British citizens and American citizens and South African citizens that still support what we are doing. So I want to conclude here and summarize my shame. And I hope I have explained why I am ashamed to be an Israeli and why I am ashamed to be Jewish, and hoping very much that when we meet in 10 years, I'll be proud of my Israeli nationality and of my Jewish identity again. Maybe, Anton, if you give me 2 minutes, I would be delighted to answer questions about our international standing. And here may be only one thing to show you how foolish our government is. You know that the war has caused a deterioration in our international status, and you know it very well as South Africans, because South Africa approached the International Court of Justice. But a month ago, we had a war against Iran that gave us an unbelievable pause in this deterioration, because the Iranians are about as popular in the world as we are. And with the fact that this war hit a very unpopular and dangerous regime brought us back to a certain level of understanding in the international community. And instead of using this to U-turn the horrible things that we are doing in Gaza, we came back to this Gaza swamp. And what we do now with the starvation in the last month and with the transfer has brought us immediately back to this diplomatic tsunami on us. And what worries me is that we're not going to stop this war. And we, as it looks now in the Israeli political scene, you will soon see settlements in Gaza. Once we push them out of Gaza in tens of thousands or already hundreds of thousands, and to the south, you will see the north of Gaza being populated by Jews. So we are deepening the problem, the international problem, to a point that I think this is, at this stage, our real existential problem, to disconnect ourselves from the world. And by the way, to create two Jewish people. It will come to it. It's already, I think, a situation that we have 3/4 of messianic, nationalistic, conservative Jewish people, and 1/4 of a pluralistic, liberal, democratic Jewish world. It will come to a point that we'll have two Jewish people, and you know on which side I will be, not on the Israeli side. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you could hear that applause across the room. Those were very strong words and important words. So thank you very much. I'm going to take a question from Cape Town first and ask anyone who has a question to please come up and be ready for the next one. I'm going to ask the questioners here and in Cape Town to be brief, please. Go ahead, Cape Town.
All right. Can you hear me? Excellent.
Yes.
I have two questions. I'm Jewish. One is about internal, what's happening in Israel, and the other is about Dr. Liel, to you in terms of your relationship with the South African Jewish community. So my first question is, there was a young woman by the name of Ayala Swiza, who this last week, took a pair of wire cutters and tried to actually cut the fence. She was stopped getting to the fence in Gaza. Why are we not seeing more people actually taking those kind of actions and taking on what needs to be taken on the ground? We see lots of protests, but more needs to be done. So that's the first question. And the second question to you personally.
One question, please.
What's the relationship to your relationship to the South African Jewish Board of Deputies and the Zionist Federation, who has issues with our South African government taking our government to Israel to the ICJ?
Okay. Let us, Anton, we'll answer one by one, okay?
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Why is there not enough Israeli opposition to what the government is doing? Again, this is one of the reasons I'm ashamed. I think the Israeli public was manipulated to a point that drove it further away from our region and from our Arab citizens, to the point that it is now acceptable to challenge the presence of Arabs in our politics. Now, this has, you know, when I was the ambassador, when I was the spokesman, we were very proud, and always when they said you are apartheid, I said we are apartheid. We have 4 Arab parties, and they have between 10 to 15 members of parliament. Now, the feeling is that it's temporary. You know, there was a vote to expel the leader, Ayman Odeh, from the parliament, and it had a massive majority, but not the 90 that were needed. But the center parties, center Jewish parties, and there are no left parties, as I told you, the Jewish members of parliament voted to expel him. There were only 13 votes against, 10 of them were of the Arab parties. So the Jewish public was pushed a point, a nationalistic point, that to object to what Israel is doing in Gaza and in the West Bank has become to the point of treason. And when you're a traitor, you know what happens to you, and you remember what happened to your traitors, your white traitors that joined the ANC and so on, and it's becoming very close to what's happening here. People who spoke against the excessive use of force in Gaza, the starvation in Gaza, were fired. It's true that it's mostly Arabs. They're still cautious about firing Jews. But when you created this feeling of fear inside the Israeli public, and the people are afraid for their jobs, afraid for their families, afraid for their children at school. So the Israeli opposition limited itself to demonstrations, to non-violent demonstrations. And it's not enough. It's not enough. You know, the main thing that became a consensus and is the source of all the other deterioration is the settlements. And the settlements today amount to close to 600,000 people. And we have, I think, between a quarter and a third of ministers who are settlers. So it's impossible to object to settlements anymore and stay undamaged in Israel. So I think the situation is that the people who object to it, like me, are not courageous enough to cross the red lines and endanger prison. And even to the point of being fired from the university. I still teach in a university. I want to go on teaching in university. I don't want to lose the contact with our young generation and so on. But if I cross the line, I'll be fired. So I think this is one of the reasons the Israeli opposition is so polite toward the government. The other question was on the South African approaching the International Court of Justice. You know, I want to say a word to you as South Africans. I, for years, heard from the Ranana South Africans. I see at least one of them here in the crowd. They were criticizing me for years that I picked up the Mandela side and that we supported Mandela even before he came to power. And often they told us, look what happened to South Africa. No water, no electricity, and look at Israel, look at the skyline of Tel Aviv. And I told them that with my analysis, professional analysis, the situation, the political and international situation of South Africa is better than the political and international situation of Israel. Not the economic one, not the technological one, not the military one, but the fact that you removed the tons of ammunition that existed under your earth will enable a normal future for South Africa one day. The fact that we not only did not remove this ammunition under our earth, under our high rises, and only adding to it more and more ammunition is putting Israel in a more dangerous situation regarding its future than South Africa. They were laughing at me. They were laughing at me. I mean, really, we live like kings in Israel. And I still hear complaints about your 4 hours of electricity and corruption and so on. But I am still seeing what South Africa went through and is still going through as a source of hope to us, as a source of hope. And I think the fact that you as Jews feel probably safer in South Africa today than I feel in Herzliya, and the fact that I was during the last 2 years 50 times in the shelter, and you not even once, says a lot. So I think that the criticism of South Africa is legitimate, is legitimate. We have to have more countries raising this red card to Israel. And I know only yesterday, Brazil, I think, joined the South African approach to the International Court of Justice. And I think it's 10 countries now. It's not only South Africa. And I think this red card, if more countries will show us the red card, more countries that we care about, maybe we will start noticing the international community.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I've got a lineup of questions here, so I'm going to ask that questions and answers be as short as possible. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much for your courage in speaking out. My question is about your journey from being mainstream of the mainstream to being so critical and even ashamed. What helped you change your perspective? To what extent has Israel changed, and to what extent has your awareness and understanding changed?
I'm trying to be objective, but I didn't change at all. I didn't change at all. When I served as ambassador, we had a different country. It was not the country we have today. And really, we are at the point, I think, a year ago, you probably didn't notice, Turkey changed the name of the country to Turkey. They felt unpleasant that the name in English is Turkey, that you eat for dinner once a year in America, and they felt uncomfortable with the name Turkey. They changed to Turkey also because of the change that the country went through to a religious Islamist country from a secular country. They felt the need to change the name. I think we will change the name in few years. I don't think the name Israel represents the country that I grew up in and the country that I served as a diplomat for 30 years. So I tried to, when I said that I'm ashamed, I tried to explain to you what the change is. And the country was changed. I don't think I changed. By the way, when I was the spokesman, it was 1986 to 1990. I was the spokesman about 3.5 years. And I had a press conference every day, every noon, at Bet Agron in Jerusalem, at the Journalist Association House. And every day I said 2 countries to 2 people. And every day, 30, 40 years ago, I said we are ready to exchange land for peace. Nobody in Israel, definitely not in the government, and never, even not in the center, is saying it anymore. Nobody is ready to exchange land for peace. And this was the mainstream 30 years ago, 35 years ago.
Thank you. Thank you. Cape Town, next question.
Hi, thank you. So picking up on an earlier question and a question with Sir Mick from London Collective. So I hear you saying, and I know from speaking to people, relatives in Israel, that even people who used to believe in a 2-state solution and made an aliyah to fight for a 2-state solution and no longer believe it possible. My cousin literally said they can only have autonomy. They can never have a state, right? So Bantustans are acceptable, you know, if we're using South African language, and we're happy to live with that because so. And some people earlier, the speaker was saying, well, two-state solution is still the only way forward. But to me, it seems like a fantasy. And I think people are stuck in a liberal idea of in a nostalgic idea of what Israel used to be. We don't necessarily understand what you're saying, that it's become 2/3 Messianic Jews and that the secular is, you know, kind of liberal Israelis are a very small minority. I don't think this has penetrated the mainstream thinking of South African, well, not even mainstream, even alternative thinking of diaspora Jewry. Do you see a way forward like a South African solution where a one state is possible?
Look,
Because I don't see a two-state solution being, I can't see it.
look, yeah,
Thank you. Go ahead.
you know, I recently published a book that is called Swords to Plowshares, about how other countries eliminated violence and even reached a peace agreement, like Ireland, like South Africa, and even like Cyprus. And the problem here in Israel at the moment is not at all how will the final picture look. One country, two countries, three countries. It's completely irrelevant. Completely irrelevant. The problem is that we cannot anymore enter with the Palestinians the same room to discuss the future. To discuss. As you know, last time we were in the same room was a dozen years ago. At the last 2 years, or about a year before Obama finished his second term, we were last time in the same room with the Palestinians. Later, we had for about 6 months what we call proximity talks, that the Secretary of State moved from Ramallah to Jerusalem. Since then, we are not in the same room, not with the Hamas. We are not in the same room with Abu Mazen. With Abu Mazen, we are not in the same room, and we cannot enter the same room with him because we don't have what you achieved after apartheid and what the Irish achieved, the parity of esteem. We don't see them at all. Definitely don't appreciate that they have a right to speak and they have a right to their narrative. So the problem of Israel today is that we cannot launch talks, not that we cannot end talks. Give me the leadership that can enter the room with the Palestinians and let them speak in the room, and then let's think on the final picture, on the final outcome. There is no point to think on what we want to see as in the future when we cannot talk to them. If we cannot talk to them, we can only kill them or downgrade them or humiliate them. This is the only thing that is happening now. That's the only game in town. So the key is parity of esteem. We cannot level the differences economically, militarily, technologically, infrastructure-wise. We can level this only on the honor, on the respect, on the level of respect, on the level of letting them tell the story. The Israeli public now is not ready to hear another story between the Jordan and the Mediterranean. There is only one story. The Zionist story is the only story of the 15 million people living here.
Thank you. Please come up. We have a question here.
We don't talk to that.
Yeah, just.
Thank you for your talk, and I want to ask a question, maybe unfair. I want to put aside what Israeli government does or doesn't. I want to put aside the 7th of October, and the complication that happened after the 7th of October, and to ask you, because that's where I myself get confused, to ask you about the different interests of the different Palestinian groups. The Palestinians that are led by the Palestinian Authority hear very different messages about Israel to the Palestinians that are led by Hamas. Palestinian Authority and Israel has got a far more a collaboration, and despite that, we know what Netanyahu did to the Palestinian Authority, and we also know how he strengthened Hamas. But the fact is that in the charter of Hamas, there's no hint that there is any possibility of living together. I don't want to repeat what they say, but and there is and also the Palestinians in Gaza are all refugees, whereas Palestinians in the West Bank or in the occupied territories on the West Bank, I think mostly are not. So there is a problem for me of the composition of Palestinians. We cannot homogenize them. Neither can we homogenize the institutional leadership of the two groups. So and that's, for me, this is also an obstacle to the future, not only our own devastating approach.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a very important question. And I will tell you how it looks here now. Netanyahu is still more afraid of Abu Mazen than of Hamas. And by far, because Hamas, you don't have to give them anything. You shoot boom, boom, boom until you kill the last one of them. Abu Mazen, you have to give him something. He behaved. He never had a gun. He never carried a gun. And the fear of the Israelis is that we'll have to give them something. Now, even if they will be pussycats and behave, we will not give them anything because the land is sacred. It's not theirs. So all this positioning that the problem is the Palestinians is fake news. Fake news. I will, even if we'll kill the last Hamas guy and Netanyahu will announce a total victory, he will not enter talks with Hamas, with the Palestinians, unless, by the way, if the international community will force him to do it with sanctions and so on, especially Trump. He will not enter ever the room with the Palestinians because he said there will never, ever be a Palestinian state, no matter how they behave.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm afraid we're out of time. I know there's lots of questions, but we will have further opportunities. I want to thank you for taking the time and trouble to speak to us. You've certainly had strong and important things to say and quite sobering things to say. Thank you for your directness.
So thank you all for hosting me. And it was very nice to be in South Africa for an hour after what I told you that what is going on in Israel.
Welcome back and hope to see more of you. I'm going to hand back to Erwin to introduce the next speaker.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Leave the minute to